Welcome to Conscious Insights, Strategies for Leadership Evolution. Engage in roundtable discussions that spark deep dialogue with executives and thought leaders to advance conscious leadership and explore innovative practices. Join us and gain insights that will elevate your leadership journey. Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Conscious Insights. I'm always excited for these episodes, especially when I get to have conversations with amazing humans. And today we're gonna talk with Forrest Wilson, and I'll tell you more about Forrest in a moment about Emergence. And we're building on Emergence for we started this series this season with Bob Anderson, and we talked very broadly and deeply about expanding consciousness and what that meant. And then I did some solo episodes about some frameworks about how we build to that. And now we're really transitioning into when we're in conscious leadership and we're in more transformed spaces, like how do we actually do that? And so I'm very excited to have Forrest here. I've known Forrest Wilson for 6+ years, I'm guessing. Feels like a lifetime. And so Forrest is the CEO of Luminous Labs and the founder of Luminous Capital. And I just read from his LinkedIn profile, because this does describe him well: applying awakened consciousness to civilizational well-being. And so just if those words don't mean anything to you now, once you listen and see Forrest, it'll make a lot more sense. But we want to talk about Emergence, and I brought on Forrest today because, Forrest, you live and work at the frontier of emergence. So as a matter of fact, when I first met you, we were doing some work together on something called the Emergent playbook. Yeah. So, Forrest, tell me in your words. I usually read people's bio, but you aren't the person that has a typical biography. So I'd love to just first talk about when I introduce you and I say you work at the frontier of emergence. Can you explain to people what that means?
Thanks, Renelle. Yeah, it's good to be here with you. What a beautiful question. For me, emergence comes online when I'm taking a breath here and checking to see what emerges. Right. So there's a moment for a lot of us in our life where we outgrow the concept of who we think we are. We start to see story as an object. I don't know about you, but I had a moment in my 20s, just a very striking moment of, oh my gosh, I have been identified as this story of who I am my entire life. And I've really, really thought that that was me. But I realized I've just been making up this story this whole time. My name's Forrest Wilson. I'm 34 years old. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia. I did this and then I did that. But that's actually not me. I'm the one making up the story. Well, what's making up the story? Right. And that's a really interesting line of exploration that we can keep deepening into.
I love that about you, though, is because what you describe as awakening and emergence. I mean, you really woke up to that much earlier in life than many people ever do, and in some respects, maybe my sense is that the generations that came before me will do some waking up faster. At the same time, I have always experienced you as someone that is, seeing and trying to live beyond the personality, and what you call, I think what you're calling the story, your story.
Right. So we become aware that what we are is way bigger than, and way more vast than what we've been identified as. Right. So that's really exciting. That's the light side of awakening. And you and I met in COVID times or before COVID times. But actually, my experience of facilitating emergence largely came online during COVID. There were 3 different companies that I was supporting with implementing Teal, Frederick Laloux's Teal work, if listeners are familiar. And then COVID happened, and everybody's plan for everything flew out the window. I mean, people were calling me and they were saying, hey, Forrest, we're 2 weeks into this COVID thing. All of our clients have taken back their commitments for this year. All of our committed revenues are gone. They're saying that this COVID thing might go another 2 weeks. Obviously, we all know it went on for 2 years.
Yeah.
What do we do? Right. And there's no playbook, there's no book, there's no model, there's no map, there's no answer to that question. So what do leaders and what do organizations and what does humanity do in the face of levels of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity that are unprecedented and not solvable with the prefrontal cortex?
A couple of things happened, right? There were many people that brought about fear and clamping down onto more control, because COVID was one, yeah, scary time. We had not been through that. No one in our lifetime had been through that. And then there were other ways of doing things. Well, what is this trying to reveal to us, and what is it still trying to reveal to us? And so, to your point, it was the first amazing opportunity for people to truly, especially leaders, to experience and leverage emergence. And not everyone actually did. But you bring up a great point, that was one of an amazing time to really lean into it.
Absolutely. So exactly right. So when we're faced with levels of uncertainty and not knowing and unfathomable complexity that we can't, our prefrontal cortex cannot solve this. It's too complicated and it's too adaptive. It's too in the moment. Things are changing too quickly. There's the information and basic assumptions that are making up the ground that we walk are falling through in every moment. So it feels like the ground, anytime you feel any stability, it's just falling through again. And here you are, just free falling, right? It's what's holding you in that time when you feel like nothing's holding you. And so exactly as you said, we can have, that can be a catalyst for us to open into an even more vast and deeper dimension of our being that can be with the experience that's happening. And it can also be a catalyst for a massive contraction where we get defensive and territorial and snippy and mean or scared, whatever it is, right? We can have both of these experiences and lots of other experiences too. So at
Yeah.
that time, I responded to my clients, and the impulse that I had in the moment was I said, I don't know what we're going to do, but here's the emergent impulse that's coming through me. Let's convene a 21-day container called a possibilities playground. We'll meet for an hour a day, every day on Zoom, including the weekends. And we're not going to have an agenda for the call. The agenda for the call is we're going to be with what's going on, and we're going to practice. We're going to cultivate our capacity to be with the not knowing and the uncertainty and the what the heck. I mean, really, a lot of emergence is the beginning of just like the what the F is going on.
It's funny because I described it. I gave an unanticipated speech when I won an award a couple of weeks ago. And I remember saying, well, much of emergence is just what the heck is happening right now. I mean, the
Exactly.
first, like, just that's not what emergence is, but there is some sense of that until you, as you're letting it move through you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it can be super confronting. We started convening these calls. It was confronting as me for a facilitator. We get on the call and everyone's going, what do we do? And I'm going, I don't know. What do we do? Right. I mean, it takes a lot of courage as a facilitator to convene a call with no agenda, with no plan. And then people, it's super confronting for people. I'm not used to coming, I mean, speaking as a participant, I've never come on a business call with my boss and my colleagues, and clients actually started joining them through time, um, clients of the organizations. And they'd say, what are we doing here? We don't know. Okay, well, what do we talk about? What do you want to talk about? Right. And now
Well,
the
yeah, leaders don't always, especially corporate leaders, that there has not been an appetite for that, because what are we actually accomplishing here? And we were somewhat forced into that during COVID, because I had a very similar thing as you. One day, all of my clients pulled back, and they were literally all gone.
Yeah.
And 3 weeks later, they called back and said, "What do we do?
Yeah.
We do think we need to have your presence, but we're not sure how. And I was like, let's do similar to what you did. But we, brought in some things about just what is change? What are we, what are we feeling like here? And I think, were you part of Emergent Playbook yet when we started putting out presence in uncertain times? And just every week we put that out and we sensed into what we wanted to happen. And we had so many people join that, honestly, I don't know would have joined that before COVID.
Exactly, right? COVID was such an amazing catalyst to invite us into exploring different ways to be in relationship with our life. Because prior to COVID, most of us are living in this story, and our relationship with time is different, right? We're living in this timeline where I'm here, and in 6 months I'll be there, and 6 months after that I'll be there. And COVID blew all of that up. All of our timelines and our certainty about how things were going to go fell apart. And what Emergence does is Emergence invites us into the moment.
Yeah.
Emergence is happening now. We come out of, in a lot of ways, we come out of time and we
Yeah.
go, we're in the eternity of right now.
Yeah. It's so, I knew we were talking about this afternoon, but it's the afternoon where we're recording, though I also don't plan these conversations. And so this morning I was with a coaching client of mine who really has leaned in for the last year. And similar to what you're saying, when I asked about, like, if I would have asked him 6 months ago, like, what is actually revealing itself to you, he would have probably told me to leave. Thank you very much. We've been working up to that. What does that mean? And to your point, there's like a pull, and the signs are all there
Right.
if you let that pull happen. And
Mhm.
I mean PULL, not POLE.
Mhm.
And but there is that pull. And how would you describe that? Because I feel it in my body, and it's usually coming from my heart, and seems to be about getting people out. We still use our heads, right? But that's not where emergence comes from. It seems to me to come up, and then we utilize our mind with it.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So you had COVID, which was such a beautiful disruption for the conceptual reality we were living in. And now you have things like AI that are evolving so fast that it's like, okay, how can we really make a prediction of what it's going to be like to live in the world 2 or 3 years from now? Like, in a lot of ways, that's silly. We might live in a completely job optional society because AI and robots are doing all the jobs, and we don't have a clue what life will look like, right? And so there's an interesting thing of um, we're being invited into emergence and being invited into not knowing of we don't even know what society is going to look like, but there's also a pace that's happening to it. So the luminous leaders in the world right now need to not only be able to be in emergence, to be able to be in not knowing and uncertainty, but we also need to be able to keep up with the pace that emergence is emerging.
So there's an urgency to it.
There's a it's exactly, and what is propelling that bottom up impulse that you're talking about is actually evolution itself. It's
Hmm.
coming from beyond space and time. It's coming from the primordial ground. It's the evolutionary impulse of life itself that's permeating through all of experience. And that's what's moving us even more robustly, even more vibrantly in every moment. And it's got that bottom up quality to it. So, like you said, now the mind is not pretending to dominate and control the show. The mind is being recreated to understand. The mind is being more appropriately positioned to understand that our minds are understanding it cannot fathom. Actually, our prefrontal cortex and linguistic mind cannot fathom the nature of the universe, and we get to enjoy that together. And that the mind can be informed by the mystery in a way that we recreate our minds to be more in harmony with things actually work, not the way that we construct, the way that we pretend that they work with our models and things.
Yeah. So right there. So there's this, like, yeah, I like reading about this, but I can't run a business this way. There are people that will say that because they're thinking about this, right? Versus what you're talking about, what we're talking about is this comes up, and then it comes up from our body, but then even bigger as it's coming up, like kind of in the unified field. But you are working. I mean, both of us are working in organizations, but you're really working in like incubators and in with leaders and with funders that are really utilizing emergence.
Right.
Can you, it's sometimes hard to put in words, but can you describe any of that process and why these leaders are engaging in this from a business perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a beautiful question. And so there's an evolutionary trajectory of this for anyone who's going, yeah, that's great. Sounds nice in theory. So we have our conceptual, we have our theories, we have our concepts, and then we have our experience, right?
Yeah.
Or in the developmental world, you say the map and the territory, right? So we have our concepts about things, and then we have things as they actually are. Um, and so there's a congruence that's needed between the two, and typically there's an evolutionary journey that happens. So maybe you have a moment like the one I mentioned earlier where you go, oh my gosh, I'm not this concept of who I think I am and who I've claimed to be this whole time. What's up with that? And there's actually a real dark night of the soul that happens there. Typically you go through a identity crisis in the way of, who am I? If I'm not this story I've claimed to be the whole time, who am I? And
And our organizations do that too,
our
right?
organizations are doing
Humans
that,
are doing it.
and we're
Yeah.
getting ready to have this at the scale of humanity. Humanity is getting ready to go through a dark night of the soul. We're going to realize we've been identified as all kinds of things for, 10,000 years since the agrarian revolution, several hundred years since the industrial revolution. But we've been making all that stuff up. Like we've been making up all these things we've been identified as: Christians, Muslims, Americans, business people, doctors. Like all of these are constructs that we've been manufacturing the entire
Right.
time. And
Well, I'll come back to the question about like the book Sapiens, right? It's like
Mhm.
as we have grown and our worldviews have shifted, we've made up all these things, and it's mostly to keep social order. But then we take them as truth, but they really, everything has been
Exactly.
made up over time.
Exactly. And now we're getting ready to be confronted with one of the deepest things we're identified as, which is our work, right? Most of us are identified by our job and what we do in the world, and that's getting disrupted by technology by the hour. I mean, we very much might live in a work optional society in the next 5 years. And so who am I if I don't have to work to survive? Who am I if I don't have to be a doctor or a pharmacist or a plumber or a IT software engineer to survive, which is the thing that I've worked since I was 11 years old or whatever to become. My primary identity is being liberated from me. So what's left? Right. Well, actually, a lot.
But it's terrifying
It's
to some, is
terrifying.
that
It
we don't
can
know.
be. It
It
can be
can be. People
terrifying.
can, it can feel. It
It
doesn't
doesn't
have to
have to
be.
be. It doesn't have to be. And it
But
oftentimes is.
yeah, or at least it starts that way. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more though about some of these leading edge or these incubators or these founders, leaders that you're exploring with right now, and why? Why are they engaging in this? Is it just for fun, or like is there, right, a business? I mean, the concept of business might be different than what we're describing today, but I'm using it loosely.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we go, right? Like business is a construct that we've made up. And what's the purpose of business? And business is happening in a larger business ecosystem that is operating within a legal system, which we've also made up, which is operating within a financial system, which we've also made up. So we're becoming aware that reality is socially constructed, and all of the systems and institutions and cultures and technologies and languages that we're interfacing with all the time, we're all making up in every moment and engaging with. So the beauty is where the freedom and the robustness comes online. Why do we do this? Is because when you realize that all of our mental constructs are just hallucination, they're manufactured constructions, we get the freedom that comes online, which is we can make up anything, right? So we don't have to be imprisoned by the constructs that we've been identified as the whole time. We realize we're not that. We get the liberation, the light side of the not knowing, which is I don't know who I am, but I don't have to be had by any of the things I've been identified as. And now, when we want to start making up business, when we make up money, when we make up law, when we make up business ecosystem, we can do it in any way we want. And the things that's drawing us is we know there's a better way. We know we have completely outgrown the world as it is. And there's a much deeper calling for a different way of being that's more in harmony with our true nature,
A
with what we,
vision pulling us.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you said just a moment ago can sound really amazing and a little bit scary because that's all this freedom, right? And so I think this is where the body comes in and why you hear so much about embodiment.
Yeah.
In this day and age, more it's always been important, right? But we talk much more about it than we used to because we do need to ground this newness, this liberation that has the potential to come online. And how do we ground it? We ground it as a human through our body. And I know you do a lot of work through the body. Can you say more about this? And I'm presuming that this is some of the work you're doing with some of the incubators and funders that you're working with.
Absolutely. And we look at it on the scale of the individual, we look at it relationally, and we also look at it at the scale of humanity. So as one of the objects that we work with is the nervous system of humanity. For example, if you look at every human being as a cell in the body of a superorganism of humanity that has 8 billion cells, right? What is the state of our nervous system as a being of humanity? For those of us who don't know that are listening, typically you talk about nervous systems in parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, which is essentially, are we stressed out and in some kind of stress response, or are we in a place of regulated, relaxed nervous system tone?
Yeah.
And we need to be able to access the full range of this spectrum. The challenge is it has become normalized that most people are walking around in an activated, stressed out nervous system state, and you wouldn't even know it because it's so common that you wouldn't see it as different.
Yeah. As though they seem stressed out because
Because everybody is.
yeah, it's like it's the frequency that people are walking around in, so it doesn't feel different.
Yeah, I like the distinction. It's not actually normal, but it's common.
I think Gabor Mate has a book called The Myth of Normal, right?
Okay.
It's a perfect title.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah. So we absolutely need a regulated and coherent nervous system as we're accessing these more expansive states of consciousness. So, on an extreme end, when I run a big workshop and a lot of this stuff is starting to open up for people, I have literally put 50 people in a line back to back, sitting with each other, creating this supercomputer of nervous systems where everybody is just breathing and letting go, and your body way beyond the layer of your prefrontal cortex meaning making system, your physical body, your nervous system, your heart is able to go, I don't have to deal with all this information by myself. There's 50 other computers here, and together we can all process the information of what's happening.
We're like co-regulating each other. The energy is co-regulating. So my sense is that brings the activation state as it grounds it a little bit, especially as new ideas or when that's the right word are coming online.
Right, absolutely. And a lot of times when we really open up into awareness, right? When we let go of because it's our mind that gets in the way of the healing. So I'll give you a couple of the fundamental assumptions we have in Luminous Labs. One is there's a natural, organic, evolutionary unfolding to consciousness. So a lot of what happens when we shift to emergence is we're not trying to manufacture outcomes so much as we're asking, what is it that's wanting to happen right now? And we're becoming available to a deeper awareness that actually awareness itself has its own natural, organic, evolutionary unfolding. The second assumption that we have is healing and awakening are available to all of us in every moment. And so we don't have to fix things as much as we do ask, what is it that's needed to liberate the healing that's already trying to happen?
Yeah. I love that. I don't know if you've worked with, I'll say his name because he's a legend to me. He's Chris Thorson, but he's in his 80s and he has utilized Aikido to build organizations since the heart of his career, and the unified. To talk about the quantum field and the unified field, and it is exactly, I think, what you're also saying in these assumptions is that the information is there, it's
Yeah.
here, and we do have to let it reveal itself.
Right.
Yeah. And that's not easy for the programming that we have been in for however many years, even as we have evolved and worldviews have evolved, that there's something, that part of us, that's a hard one for us.
It
Yeah.
goes so deep. I mean, if you really trace it back, it's there are these specific problems in the world, and they're clear problems listed in a number on a page. The answer to those problems is in the back of the book, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, at the end of this, you're going to get a letter that signifies your worth in the world. Like, and that just grows up. That grows up with us through life. And I mean, all of us poor kids, I just feel a compassion for us. And of course, this is still the way that we do education. Unfortunately, our modern day education system was invented in the Industrial Revolution. It's essentially a factory
Yeah.
system for education. And so, in an emergent world, we would probably shift from going, how do we manufacture mid-level managers in Fortune 500 companies, which is probably the outcome that education systems are mostly producing here, to saying, okay, what if human beings are born innately with curiosity and passion, and education is creating environments for happy, healthy, fulfilled human beings to thrive and cultivate their curiosities and pursue their passion and develop their virtues and their resilience and strength, so they can rise up through the trenches of childhood into realized, vibrant, beautiful human beings, right?
Yeah. Which as a parent for real, and I can't imagine any parent not wanting that for our children, right? And h- how we go about that. I mean, there's a lot of alternative education systems, but there's also like I started my kids in a little bit of alternative education systems, and then what I noticed that they needed is that there was something about the social structure that they actually really needed that was found in traditional schools. Well, I'm still not convinced that they're getting educated to their absolute potential. They're so different, and right, and they go to the same schools, my two kids, and at the same time being surrounded by all these other people around their same age is incredibly good for them. So it was really interesting for me to I mean, part of it's probably my own socialization, right? But there's something about it of, God, I love that they gather kids together in these environments. It's really, to your point, are we really unlocking their potential?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, so I'm a leader, uh, and I'm a busy leader. I've got a lot going on. The world is shifting, and I'm mostly probably living in what you and I might call, or I call, reactivity. And but it's served me well. Why am I going to start shifting and paying attention to emergence?
Well, I mean, my first question would just be, how's that going for you? Yeah.
I love that.
One thing you'll know about me, Renelle, I don't try to sell anybody on this because it's too challenging.
Yeah,
When you really get down to the deepest depths of letting go of the concept of who we've identified as our whole life, and coming from not knowing and living in the present moment and being with all the information that's here, when we let go of our rigidities, it's so much. It's so
yeah,
challenging to be with. And in those moments, I can't, I don't try to motivate people or sell people into this. I just just say to people, hey, this is an option, and if and when you want to participate, I'm here and I love you either way. If you want to go on this journey together, great, and if not, that's great too. Maybe there's a way I can support this person who is being labeled reactive to just be able to feel a little bit more fulfillment and love in their life that doesn't require emergence or some leading edge training. Now, that being said, I would ask, how's that going for you? And start here. What's working well, and let's connect to what are some of the pain points. What are the places that things might be able to be going a little bit better?
Yeah. So meet people where they're at is what I'm hearing you say. And I'm hearing you say is that I'm being truth. I'm being what I am here to be on this earth. And the that therefore is attracting organizations, leaders, incubators into this world of emergence because you're living it.
Right, right. This is so huge. One of my favorite examples of this is I did a Luminous Lab. I did an Emergent workshop at Google last year, and of course, right, everybody freaks out because they find out Forrest is doing a workshop at Google, and they go, who are you going to be for Google? How are you going to position this? What are you going to tell them you're doing? And I'm looking at all of these people. I was at a gathering with dozens of people, and I was just in awe. I'm going, oh my gosh, everybody here is in some kind of assumption that I need to pretend to be something for Google to like me and to welcome me in, like that. Coming from just being myself and inviting emergence and my offering in the world is somehow too much or not appetizing or something. And I'm looking at everybody like, I appreciate you all, and I think this is nuts. Like if I leave my authentic expression, I'm not even bringing my offer anymore. I'm posturing and I'm positioning and I'm playing some. It's like going on a date with someone and being like, I'm going to try to be beautiful and attractive so you like me, but now I'm going to be fundamentally insecure about whether or not you actually love me as a person or not because I'm not showing you who I am.
Mm.
Right. So I told everybody, I was like, I'm going to go into Google and I'm going to just be myself and see if they want me, to see if they're interested in me and whether or not they want to jive. And of course, we had a great workshop and we had so much fun and it was incredibly powerful. And I could tell you all about that. But this cuts really deep. We manufacture somehow, we have this assumption or make up that we need to be something or present something or posture something to get love or money or the girl or boy or whatever it is to get the outcome versus going, what if I drop deep down into the depths of who I am and live from here and allow that to emanate and radiate out in the universe and magnetically pull what's most cohesively, coherently resonant with my most genuine nature to me. And then you get to do things like have this podcast with Renelle, where you hang out with people you love and talk about the things you enjoy talking about, and you make money doing stuff that you would do regardless because it's awesome. And that's arguably a way better way to exist, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I think my sense is that many people will say, yeah, that sounds great. That's utopia.
Right.
I had actually, we did a visioning session with one of my clients a couple of weeks ago. And, he really does lean into this work. And when we came out of, we used lots of different senses and all kinds of things. So the point is when we came out of the vision, we really got out of the mind and then we came back to the mind, to words. And one thing he said is it feels great and it feels like utopia. And I was like, okay, so why do you think we even imagine things that aren't like they are today? Because there's that paradox of we're here in the moment, seeing it as it is, and we're also envisioning what we think is the future. But is it really the future, or is it really who we truly are and what we're here to be?
Right.
And when we turned that around, it was like, well, of course, that's why we do it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's revealing truth.
And from the emergence perspective, right, like the future implies time. And when we're in emergence, we're more in the timeless, and we're in the eternity of now. So you start to see it more from an emergence perspective. We start to see it more as a latent reality. It's a reality that's already here, pregnant in the moment, and it's not manifest. So it's here, it's latent, it's just not fully realized. And so what shifts that, right? So we start to become aware. When you ask about what's on the leading edge of emergence, we realize in quantum physics, right, that observation changes the state of the thing being observed. So we have the phenomena we're observing in reality. We also have the perception of the phenomena. So the more we transition and the more into emergence, the more we start to see the innate radiance and the innate luminosity that's inherent in all things. The more that we see through to that innate luminosity, that innate radiance that is the essence of everything that is manifest, the more that it comes through a process of fruition. It becomes more potent, more robust, more lively. It's like the universe gets even more juicy and vivacious and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and what I'm hearing you say, or my sense of things, is everything is energy before it's form. It's formless before it's form.
Mhm.
And
And it's
we
consciousness before it's energy.
Yeah, there we go. So there's even something before that. I'm remembering, because there is something about talking about emergence. Like, we can only talk so much about it because it is an experience. And so while we need to talk about it because that's what's available to us today, and we are doing more than talking right now,
Yeah.
there is an energy going out, between us and out.
Yeah.
But it reminded me of an exercise that we did when we first brought Emergent Playbook together, which wasn't really even an organization. It was a movement that you and I were part of. And it was fully remote. It was during COVID. And for a number of reasons, it was fully remote. And we sent out in the mail to everybody a package. And so then we asked people. There was first a paint by numbers, and so people took time and we painted. It was simple, so it didn't take too long. And we painted I think it was a bee. We all painted a bee, and it was paint by numbers. And we showed it, and even the paint by numbers things looked slightly different, but things looked generally the same, right? And then we had a blank canvas and a few little, a brush and some paints. And then we painted to some music about, well, what wants to reveal itself right now. And do you remember, I don't know if you remember, but every single one of those what wants to reveal itself were like so beautiful and had so much to say. And we didn't give much instruction.
Yeah.
And it was just like, how can we feel maybe the difference between vision, like a knowing where we're going to go, and emergence, letting the moment reveal itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and you're tapping into the innate intelligence in consciousness itself, right? So this is the thing. These are some of the things that are the most terrifying, is if I give up control of the outcomes that I claim to know are going to make things better, right? There's a pretty deep assumption there. Like, I know what's best, and if it happens, things are going to be better than they are now. Um,
And that keeps me safe in the world. That's our underlying thing, right? Is we think that's what keeps us safe.
It's a pretty deep assumption that we walk around with as humans. But, right, but there's what we're tapping into here is there's an innate intelligence, the thing that created the universe and planet Earth and the
Oh, that
sun.
thing?
Yeah, like there's an intelligence that pervades through all things, and we're saying, okay, what if I let go of my ego for a minute and my claim that I'm so intelligent that I know what's best for everything all the time? What if I sit that down and open up and ask, what is the organic innate intelligence that's all pervasively moving through all of space and time in every moment? What is it trying to do right now? What kind
Yeah.
of painting is it wanting to paint in this moment? And I allow it to work through me without needing to control and direct how it goes.
Yeah.
That's the risk that we're inviting people into. That's the dare, is would you dare to take a moment and try out what it's like to set down your assumption that you know what's best all the time, and see if the innate intelligence that births things like the Milky Way galaxy has anything that it wants to bring into your experience in this moment.
Yeah, and through you. So, Forrest, there's so much for people to absorb from even just our, 35, 40 minutes here. If we were to give people the chance to now ground this, you've been listening to us, we're going to send you off and we want you to do what you can to ground. Can you bring us like a grounding as we end this part of the conversation about emergence and ask people to see what life wants to reveal to them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you're not driving a car or operating any heavy machinery, you might close or lower your eyes for a second and just take a breath with us here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to notice not just the words that I'm saying, but I'm going to invite you to notice where I'm speaking to you from. And I'm just going to allow the place that I'm speaking you from to drop here. We're going to ground, almost like an anchor sinking down into the depths of the ocean. And you can just keep allowing the weight of the anchor to help us come down deeper, deeper and deeper until we find the ground, until we find the ocean floor, the ground of being. And just noticing that you have access to this as well, where I'm speaking to you from. And it's always here for you in every moment, this ground of being. Just taking a couple of nice, full, deep breaths. Letting go your thoughts. Breathe in through the heart. Letting your heart open up and make contact with this moment. And we can live life from here. This can be our normal. This can be our homeostasis, our come from when we're relating with our life, with our loved ones, with our business, and with the news, with our community. We can live life from here, from the deepest depths of our being.
Thank you. So before we end today, thank you so much, first of all, for coming on, being you, speaking as much as we can to what emergence is and how important it is. How can people find you? I'll put it in the show notes as well, but how can we find more about what you're up to?
You can go to my website, Forrest with two R's, then the letter B, and Wilson with one L.com. I've also got the Forrest Wilson Experience podcast, which if you're into emergence, you might really love. It's a field first podcast, so it's an emergence podcast. And then join luminousLabs.com is if you want to get involved in our investor incubators or consciousness accelerators or facilitator and practitioner training, or just join our growing global community of amazing people who are just beautiful, loving, gorgeous, awesome humans that make life really awesome. Those are some places to plug in.
Forrest, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be a friend and colleague, and thank you so much for joining me today. And I just look forward to what reveals itself next in every moment. So thank you.
Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
For more information, visit insight-cc.com or email us at info@insight-cc.com. We look forward to hearing from you.